So here we go. It's another Wood Elf and Lizardmen day. Like I said earlier, I do be planning to really be focusing on my tournament play instead of learning all the factions, since I feel like I've done a decent job now getting familiar with the many factions of Warhammer. So now it's going to be focusing on my main pick and counter pick factions, Wood Elf and Lizardmen. And to start off, we're going with a Spearman box, tons of cavalry, and deep wood scouts. With some Knights of the Realm here, we'll just loose a volley into them to get started. Like a pretty good initial dodge from my opponent. And we need to advance since there is a trebuchet hitting my Wild Riders. Not a great situation for me, but we should still be okay. Enchantress, we can loose a volley into her. Looks like we get some pretty good damage just to start off. We can even send in our cavalry to engage. With some Knights of the Realm coming in though, so we'll move up with our spears. And just pull back with our troops. See if the Deep Wood Scouts can hit the Knights of the Realm. And we're also going to have Drycha try to take out the Enchantress. We do manage to hit up the Knights of the Realm, doing decent damage. Enchantress does manage to escape, however. We'll just continue bouncing around with our cavalry, trying to get picks where we can. Like we might even be able to kill off the Knights of the Realm here. One unit of them, getting some solid charges with the Wild Riders. Then we'll pull back before more Knights get a solid charge on me. Spearmen here will group up the cavalry, or at least that's the hope. And then we'll have pendulums to throw down. And our Deepwood Scouts are just going to continue to try and take out these archers here. For our Wild Riders, they are going to be charging into these questing knights and so on. Right, she's going to be looking for pendulum targets. This unit of bowmen seems pretty good. And even though the cavalry has dived in onto my backline, we've stabilized pretty well here. We've caught them out with our Wild Riders, who will generally win out in that engagement. And some knights moving into the center here that I'm a bit worried about. We can summon dryads to stop them. So that should work out quite well. Let's see. Meanwhile, the Deepwood Scouts are going to continue firing on cavalry. And we'll also bring in a counter charge to any cavalry that manages to sneak through. As for Drycha, she's in a little bit of a sketchy position. A little bit caught out. And we'll pull her back to a more safe position. Use some pendulums. I guess we'll hit the second line of archers. And you can see the Deepwood Scouts have done a pretty good job. Even though they get compromised by the cavalry, they allow us to get a counter charge, which is really devastating considering how many Wild Riders we have. So there we go. There's a Wood Elf vs Bretonia game. Went basically as well as I could have hoped. And the build worked out pretty well. We look at that cavalry. Oh my gosh. Never before seen have my cavalry done so well. Essentially, we took out the archers with Drycha. They basically didn't get any damage. The cavalry constantly got cycle charged by our own. And the Deepwood Scouts mostly operated as bait for much of the game. So wow, yeah, there we go. On to the next one. And here we go. Our next game is going to be a kite build against the Greenskins. He has a few Force Goblin Spider Riders, but the Chameleon Skinks should be able to push them back fairly effectively. Have our Lord that will be moving in. And I guess probably sniping out some of his Lords. At least whatever we can get our hands on. And we'll have to be careful about Spirit Leeches. We actually don't have any healing. So I'm actually going to pull back the Skink Chief just to avoid that from happening. Or just to prevent that from happening. And yeah, it's just going to be a long kite game. We will be delaying the engagement as much as possible. Trying to get in range with our Salamanders to shut down many of these troops. Our cavalry. Be cycle charging where they can. It looks like some Orc Boar Boys are about to close in onto my Skinks, but we have the cavalry ready to support. In the meantime, we'll just continue to skirmish, pull back, and use the advantage of the poison to really make things difficult for my opponent. This goblin big boss too will have to be wary of, but he's not too much of a threat. And we're taking a cavalry trade along the right hand side. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, but we have our lord here, and it seems like the terror routes are going to win that engagement quite handily. So we'll pull back with our troops there, continue kiting away, and hopefully things work out okay. We'll continue hitting the orc boys with the salamanders, and our lord can probably begin cycle charging. It's just Skarsnik, so we're not worried about my lord getting netted down or anything. So we're feeling pretty good there. These goblin fanatics will cycle charge them with the cavalry to try and get rid of their fanatic bombs. And as long as we don't clump up our cavalry, that should work out okay. As for these trolls, we have our lord. We'll bring him in, try and terror rout them away. We'll send in the red-crested skinks too, try and deal with them. And we'll continue trying to counter skirmish along this flank. So far things are looking good. Our salamander does get caught, however. And I think it's time we use our first manticore summon. It'll buy us some pretty good space to start off. It should work out okay. Our lord is going to try to escape this river troll hag. That's a little bit of an awkward situation that we want to avoid. For the trolls, we should be able to hit him up with that manticore summon in just a second to get them to terror route. And it looks like they're just going to route normally, so we'll send it on the big boss instead and continue running away with the center line. Some force goblin spider riders do engage onto some of my skinks, but that's not too much of a problem. We'll pull them back, move in our javelin skinks, and they'll be able to buy a little bit of space for my skirmishers to get out of there. As for the trolls, it looks like they're getting chased off, and this infantry force over here, fairly separated. So if we control well enough, I think we should be able to get some big routes on top of them. Be charging them in the back with our lord, and that should be able to break them off. Let's see, we'll just be charging straight on in with him. We routed off the river troll hag, which is a big debuff to the leadership of my opponent. And with our lord in there, we also route off these orc boys. Generally pretty good. Some savage orcs here, also on the verge of routing. And I'm feeling pretty confident here now. There's still a lot of skirmishers that worry me a bit, but my lord is very healthy. We almost have another manticore summon up too, and we're going to send that on top of Skarsnik. Should be able to kill him rather quickly. We'll send in some skinks too to deal with them. And if we can snipe them out, that should be able to win us the game outright. So our lord is going to charge in on top of him. Manticore is on its way, and he'll be taking a ton of damage. If he does manage to escape at low HP, we'll be using our skink chief to survive best as he can, or to kill off Skarsnik, that is. And there we go, we do see Skarsnik indeed routes off the battlefield. Very rough for my opponent, and it's gonna be a nice GG. So two pretty decisive games off the back. Lunacy, you did well, but those were, well, the second matchup at the very least was quite difficult. And yeah, the Skink Chief did pretty good. He was really tanky, just survived, sniped off key targets, caused terror, everything you could basically expect of him. Skink Skirmishers just counter skirmished for most of the game. Both sides didn't get too much value off of their skirmishers in general because of that. As for our cavalry, they did okay, but not amazing. And in general, I think just pulling our opponent apart did well. So here we go. It's now Lizardmen against the Dark Elves. We've gone for an Engine of the Gods rush. And for my opponent, he's gone for a defensive formation, probably some shades somewhere around here. Some Black Arc Corsairs. And he's going to start off the battle by hitting up our Pterodon Riders. Managed to dodge the initial volleys of these crossbows. And we're going to just march straight on forwards. Continue to dodge wherever we can. Pterodon's actually dodging all but one of the shots. Very nice on them. And his lord is going to be a Supreme Sorceress of Death. Also two K-Knight Assassins. that are a little bit worrisome. And if he starts targeting our lords, we'll have to worry about that. The sorceress is in the air and flying, so that's something we'll have to be wary of. And since he doesn't have too many range units, I think we're fine just bringing in our pterodons on top of the bolt throwers and taking them out that way. These repeater crossbows are going to be trying to move into position. It allows our Saurus get in a little bit closer though. We'll heal up the engine of the gods since it's getting focus fired down. And we're going to get ready for those drop rocks. Our Saurus will continue moving on up. And this is a pretty nice position. Drop our rocks. That hits the bolt throwers quite hard. We'll charge into them with the pterodons and that should be able to take them out. As for our large group over here, we have the ability to start winning some infantry fights along the center here. So that's going to be the plan. We'll drop rocks again onto this bolt thrower crew, and these guys have routed off. We'll escort them with our pterodon riders. The blackguard will get engaged on by the red-crested skinks, and these dread spears over here are on their way out. Generally, things are going pretty good. We're taking very efficient trades. And we're going to net down this unit of blackguard. They're netted. We'll get the engine of the gods going. And that should be able to melt them rather well. There we go. Getting in some pretty good damage. That's about 1,300 gold worth of value just off the bat right there. And if we just cycle charge a little bit with our heroes, I'm pretty sure it should work out pretty well. The double K-Knight Assassin. We'll hit them with the Carnosaur. We'll use Engine of the Gods to try and rout off these separate troops. Mazdamundi will just try to run away from the K-Knight Assassins, essentially. We'll try to hit up the Supreme Sorceress. And it's only one bolt thrower crew operational right now. We'll be able to shut them down with skinks, hopefully. The Supreme Sorceress, it looks like she will be able to escape. And our Carnosaur is getting rampaged. We'll turn that off so that he can target troops better. And we're just trying to move our skinks in to shut down that bolt thrower. Our pterodons have shut down one of them, so that's a plus. But let's see, how are things going? These skinks are nearly dead, so we'll sacrifice them and throw down some spells onto the blackguard just to finish them off. And we'll throw down the ruination of cities too, just to really try and take care of them. For the bolt thrower, we will move in our pterodons. We still have some drop rocks there too, but things are looking a little bit dicey all of a sudden. Our Carnosaur is taking a lot of damage. The double K-Knight Assassin actually proving quite scary here. So what are we gonna do? We'll hit up the bolt thrower crew to try and get them to rout. Mazdamundi can increase the leadership over here. And if our single entities live, that's gonna be our key to victory. Still have some skinks too. Should do well. And we'll have some pterodon riders for the late game too. We'll see what we can use them for. Now our lords, let's see, Mazdamundi getting caught up in this group of blackguard. Not great. But we have another solar engine shot coming in just a second. And I imagine that should work out quite well. So we'll pull back with our monsters, move in with the skinks, and get ready for that second shot. Should be incoming in just a second. The blackguard are beginning to group up. We'll send in our troops, throw down a big old net, and then get the engine of the gods ready to fire. Mazdamundi will be taking out the lord of my opponent. And from there, hopefully we can rout off the blackguard. That's essentially our only hope here to pulling out a victory here. Mazdamundi's getting pretty low on leadership. We'll buff that up using his abilities, and we'll try to kill off these K-Knight Assassins who have been such a pain for the majority of the game. Blackguard did take decent damage from the Engine of the Gods. Nothing amazing though. So let's see how this plays out. We can chase off this one K-Knight Assassin, but a big Spirit Leech is coming in. We'll have to try to pull out of that to see if we can get these guys to live. The K-Knight Assassin is dying, which is a plus. But let's see, what do we got? We have Mazdamundi, who is actually quite low here. Engine of the Gods is getting engaged on. We still have Dropbox, which actually could prove very useful here. We still have a bunch of AoEs, and hopefully that can win it for us. Let's see, we'll be moving in our troops to engage, which will allow us to cycle charge as much as we want here. And we're trying to chase down these Corsairs. Now, let's see, we can throw down some big AoEs. And if we can just kill off the infantry, then we should be in a fairly good position. Ruination of cities, hitting for a decent amount, nothing amazing. We still have a unit of Pterodon riders, but Mazdamundi is extremely low right now. The banishment hits decently, not amazingly. Mazdamundi is in a pretty freaky position. However, the Blackguard are very low. We'll charge them in the backs with the Pterodon riders and hopefully get them routed off. Mazdamundi does rout himself though. And I think it's just barely going to be a win for the Dark Elves. Darn it. Oh my goodness. So close. Yet so far. I think the fact that the K-Knight Assassins did so well was pretty freaky. And we didn't really finish off the Blackguard. We killed 2 of them decently quickly, but this one unit, catching my monsters, this is what really did it. If I had played more carefully and made sure that I focus fired them better, that would have done well. The Engine of the Gods did actually pay for itself there. But my Carnosaur died a bit early too. Supreme Sorceress did quite well. And yeah, I think we probably should have killed these guys, just avoided the Blackguard for longer, and that would have won it. Anyways, I'll get into that story later, but for now, it's gonna be the Wood Elves against the High Elves. We have some Dragon Princes moving in onto one of the flanks. And we're going to see if... Nah, we're not going to pendulum them. Instead, we'll just continue to march forwards, and we're going to try to overrun these Shadow Warriors. Then again, there are Dragon Princes there. We'll want to be careful, making sure that we don't get caught up too badly there. For these Spearmen, we'll save a pendulum to run into them. Cavalry will just be cycle charging these spears. And for these spears, we can hit them with that pendulum. Dragon Princes collapsing in onto my Deepwood Scouts. We'll hit them with the enfeebling foe, and that should be able to catch and kill them. Our Tree Man in a pretty good position too. He'll be able to rout off the spears over here. The Dryads are doing fairly well also, and our Deepwood Scouts have a nice place to escape to. Generally, I think we're doing fairly good here. In fact, the Tree Man, he can start chasing off the these Shadow Warriors, and then we'll just use our cavalry to hopefully win the day for us. Dragon Princes have taken a lot of damage, but we've lost a lot of Wild Riders too. Generally, things are going fairly evenly, I'd say. But there's more Dragon Princes coming in, and our Deepwood Scouts are getting compromised rather hard. Now, they will try to retreat to the best of their abilities. But, oh man, we are losing the fight against Dragon Princes. We actually had a pretty bad play against the Shadow Warriors. But let's see how this turns out. Dragon Princes are still on the verge of routing off. We still have Drycha. Some of our Wild Riders are coming back. Let's see how this goes. Deepwood Scouts will be firing into the back of them too. But there's still a lot of spears for my opponent. The Tree Man could do well. I'm not sure how this is going to go. We should be able to rout off one of the Dragon Princes though. Drycha is here to provide her leadership, but the spears for my opponent are now coming in. Ooh, this could be rough. This could be rough. Balance of Power doesn't like us, that's for sure. But can we recover? We'll have to see. Our Wild Riders will be able to charge into the Dragon Princes. Drycha can continue throwing down debuffs onto them. Our Deepwood Scouts will be pulling in all sorts of directions. Try and dodge here. Tree Man, Not really proving too useful. He can chase a Lithanar, but that's about it. And what are we gonna do about this situation here? Still have many Dragon Princes. We can get a Dryad summon on top of them, however. And that may be the break that we need to actually help pull a victory here. Floor Master of Hoeth, too, getting surrounded by Dryads helps us out a tiny bit. And let's see, do we have any Wild Riders left? It looks like they're just about all dead. But we've killed off the Dragon Princes. We still have a fairly high HP Tree Man too, and he'll be able to keep a Lithanar busy for a while. But I'm sort of worried that the Tree Man will die. Oh man, this is a rough situation. Nevertheless, we have Drycha, but the infantry is looking a lot worse for us. There's still these Shadow Warriors at high ammunition, and I expect they're going to win the game for my opponent here. We don't have any Wild Riders still, and there's Dragon Princes coming back. Let's take a look at the Tree Man. Doing decently against the Lithanar. We'll see if he manages to win out the late game along with Drycha. Our single entity forces are still doing good. But the Shadow Warriors just have so much ammunition. I think they'll probably be able to kill everything. Nevertheless, we'll hold on just in case. Dragon Princes do come back too, though. That's pretty rough. We do rout off a unit of spears. Drycha's doing okay. Our Deepwood Scouts are pretty brutalized. Oh man, if only we kept our cavalry alive. Oh, woe is my common mistake. How are Deepwood Scouts doing? They're doing pretty rough. But I'm hoping these Shadow Warriors just run out of ammunition. There's a chance that they could waste the rest of their ammo here. And I think that misplay from my opponent could work out well for us. We see a Lithanar spawn his clone, which allows the Tree Man to chase the correct target here. At the very least, the Dragon Princes coming in, and you can now see the effectiveness of late game cavalry. They'll be able to clear up my infantry, and this is a big play because my opponent... Okay, we'll call it GG here. It's a big play because he will have enough ammunition, and then he can just shoot the Tree Man to death. So I'm pretty confident that Loopy would be able to carry out the win there. And I think that's just a testament to his nice cavalry micro. We spent about the same amount of money into our cavalry. I mismicroed mine a little bit more, and I let them take a lot of shots from the Shadow Warriors. That's really what caused problems there. So, yeah, I think that's a big thing. My Deepwood Scouts, I wasn't firing with them for a really long time too, and they could have done a lot more damage, but nevertheless, just the usual misplays from me. We just have to work on our micro for next game. But here we go. It's Lizardmen against the Wood Elves. Give the good luck, have fun. So I guess we start. And we brought a ton of cavalry. We have 2 Skink Chiefs for single entities, Sacred Croxagores for his cavalry, and Mazdamundi for his suite of AoE spells. Opponent, Loopy, has brought some Glade Guard, a unit of Blade Singers, Eternal Guard, probably something in the forest, I would imagine. This doesn't look like his whole army worth of gold. See a Spell Singer of Life. And yes, he almost surely has more money spent somewhere. Shot coming down onto my Skink Chief 2 signals that he has a Way Watcher, not a Way Watcher, but a Way Stalker somewhere along here, and he'll be sniping out my heroes. We'll just dodge as best as we can. But that's going to be a little bit difficult. We'll move back the Skink, get him into a better position. Bring our cavalry along the far flank. And we're going to be flanking around, try and hit his archers. The Way Stalker does reveal himself. Skink Chiefs have taken a decent amount of damage off the get-go. And how do we want to play this out? We have a lot of cavalry. He may have some, but primarily in the forest. I guess we just advance here. Use our Skink Chiefs fairly defensively. They don't have too many targets here. But I think we'll be able to punch through the front line fairly well with all of these javelins and cavalry units I'm feeling pretty confident on that front. We'll be able to throw many of the javelins. We won't take too much damage from these Glade Guard. And here we go. Sylvan Knights revealing themselves. Let's see. Nope, just Great Stag Knights by the looks of it. Our Skinks to throw javelins into them. Try to maneuver around the backside of my opponent. And we're going to use our cavalry to take some pretty nice engagements here. Croxigors will be moving into. We'll throw down a shield of the old ones, or maybe not actually. And our left flank actually is coming in a little bit late. A big misplay from me actually. Means that we won't be able to get the engage that we want on time. Our troops here taking a pretty nasty fight. But perhaps a banishment will be able to carry out a victory here. Our cavalry in the meantime are going to be overrunning the flank. Mazdamundi. Let's see, I guess we're going to be healing our cavalry here. A pretty nasty engagement, but we do catch out some wild riders. Hopefully we'll be able to kill them off with the Croxigors. As for all of the archers here, we can hit them with the cavalry. We're moving in to do that. There's only one unit of Blade Singers, that's not especially scary. And let's see how this fight goes. Not amazingly, gotta be honest. But we are overrunning these Glade Guard Starfire shafts, so that's a big plus. Cavalry is occupied here. It's only that we should have been doing this much earlier. Nevertheless, we'll continue to collapse in on top of them. Charge in with those Spear Riders. Use Mazdamundi over here. Help out the fight. A ruination of cities, perhaps, but no. We'll keep that instead. And our Red Crested Skinks will be fighting Eternal Guard. Now, these Wild Riders are quite beat up. Nevertheless, we'll have to run away from them, since we want to make sure that our own cavalry stays relatively safe. The Sacred Croxigors are doing quite well too anyways, so we're not too worried there. Let's see, we're just trying to move into a better position with these Cold One Riders, so that we don't have to fight on top of spears. And let's see. Croxigors can charge into these Stag Knights. Could be a pretty nice engagement. Red Crested Skinks too will be very annoying for my opponent, and we can start cycle charging the War Dancers. Generally, some pretty nice trades. Can we net down the Stag Knights? Oh, there we go, we do, and that's a really nice trade for us. But we lose out our cavalry here on the far side. That's pretty rough. The Blade Singers are putting in a lot of damage onto my troops. However, we can charge these spears in the back. We can chase off the spears over here. And we'll be running away with the Cold One Knights, getting them into a safer position. Let's see. Our goal here is going to be killing off as much infantry as we can. And then winning out the late game from there. Croxigors are in a good place. The War Dancers are putting in a pretty scary amount of damage. But there's not a lot of cavalry left for my opponent. That's definitely a huge plus. We get a really solid counter charge over here too. So that's good. Let's see, Croxigors will be able to come in, kill off those War Dancers also. And the double Skink Chief, I imagine, will be pretty annoying in the late game. Our Red Crested Skinks here will be able to support our cavalry exceptionally well. And it's just shutting down these Starfire shafts, I believe, that will do it for us. Shield of the Old Ones to keep all these guys fighting as long as they can. We'll even throw down an AoE, try and kill everything there. These Glade Guard can't do much against my double Skink Chief. And nice, that banishment kills off the rest of my opponent's cavalry. We'll refuse to die with the Skinks, so that they don't die. And let's see. There's actually still a few Stag Knights left that we have to worry about. Let's group up with our troops, try and get on top of them. Ruination of cities on top of these archers here. And if we can kill off these Stag Knights, we're feeling much more comfortable. Ruination of cities does okay, not amazing. But the Stag Knights are getting low. And we still have a good amount of infantry here. Not to mention the Sacred Croxigors and a little bit of cavalry too. The Stag Knights should be going down. This Skink Chief will buff up his leadership so he doesn't run. We'll get these, We'll try to get these, our Cold One Riders alive as best as possible. And the Skink Chiefs going to be running to a safer position. We'll heal this one up because he's actually getting pretty close to dying. Getting knocked around by the Spell Singer. But it's just a few archers left. They can't really snipe out Mazdamundi. They can, however, kill my Sacred Croxigores. So to prevent that, we'll try to disrupt these archers to keep the Croxigores alive. We don't really have any cavalry left at this point. Mazdamundi, though, is still a beast. And the Glade Guard are about to get collapsed in on. Definitely very good for us. We'll finish off the Waystalker too and just chase these guys off. This Spell Singer, although quite the pain, we will be able to shut her down. And all these troops should be relatively easy to chase off, given that the edge of the map is actually surprisingly close. Let's move in with Mazdamundi. We'll throw down a Shield of the Old Ones where we can. Actually throw them down on top of these skinks so that they don't rout. Skink Chief does come back too. We'll heal him up and he'll help kill off this Spell Singer. That should work out quite well. The Croxigores are still alive, caught up in spears right now, so we'll disengage with them to find a better engagement. Mazdamundi can move in to fight off against the Spell Singer of Life. And do we want to net her down? I guess that's what we're going to be doing. I actually didn't mean to throw down the net, but nevertheless, not the worst case scenario. We can shoot her with the Skink Chiefs, and that should work out fine. Let's see, Mazdamundi can come in too and actually get a charge on her, doing some pretty decent damage. And with these Glade Guards shut down, I'm feeling pretty confident about this game. So there we go. Pretty scary game, but we did manage to pull through. He had a triple Stag Knights, but I think we actually traded into the... we didn't trade into them amazingly. Our Croxigores traded well into them, but everything else had a rough time. Nevertheless, the Croxigores, ancient Croxigores, actually did really well. 1700 damage value. These guys actually carried the game for us. They got through the physical resist of the Wood Elves, and that was just a huge bonus. We also could have killed these archers a lot better in the early game, and despite misplaying there, we still pulled out a win. Had a pretty good game there. And here we go. It's a Wood Elf type build with air superiority against the Beastmen. And for our opponent, it looks like he's gone for Mass Harpy. Interesting choice, we'll be able to kite them up. But there's a lot of infantry and cavalry here. We'll bring in our Wild Riders to support, to make sure that they don't die over there. We'll get the Sisters of Twilight to come in, actually sniping out 6 Harpies with one shot. Extremely good trade, and now we can hit up this cavalry. Our spears will brace for the charge. This will make it so that they don't get as nearly as much damage here. And then we'll bring in the Hawk Riders to position and fire in above. We actually negate most of the damage here. We have our cavalry in to support. Generally a pretty nice time. Now the caster is going to be a Bray Shaman of Wild. Could be pretty scary. The Harpies are coming in. We'll use the Sisters of Twilight to engage on top of them. And we're going to try to kill off this Bray Shaman. Our Wild Riders do get countercharged by all this cavalry, but now we can bring in the Sylvan Knights. The Sisters of Twilight won't really be able to breath attack here until we take the Harpies off. Nevertheless, the Bray Shaman taking a lot of damage from our flyers. We'll even bring them in to charge the Harpies, just specifically so that we can get a breath attack on all of these troops here. We'll try to land the Sisters of Twilight to get a big rout. It looks like that works out decently well. Our Hawk Riders are doing good against the Harpies. We've established our air superiority. Spears fighting over here, doing quite well, and the Sisters of Twilight are going to move in to give a devastating breath attack to all that infantry. Wild Riders should rout off all the troops on this side, and with our flyers still in the air, I think we're feeling fairly confident here. Now this Bray Shaman We'll continue to snipe him out, as he is a high priority target. We have lost one of our units of cavalry. It's a bit unfortunate, but we also have our spears at the ready, and they'll be able to do quite a bit of damage. Sisters of Twilight will be able to eventually kill off that shaman. And some spears over here. Going to be moving to a slightly better defensive formation, as the cavalry is coming into charge. We do have our Sylvan Knights, however, to countercharge, so we're not too worried on that front. Sisters of Twilight can move in here too to support. And with the Bret Shaman nearly out of the battle, I'm feeling okay. The magic damage for the Beastmen is now just on their cavalry. The Bret Shaman off the battlefield. And who's the Lord? It's Mogr. He has a lot of missile resist, so we'll have to save him for the late game to snipe out with the Sisters of Twilight. Cavalry here can't really charge because of my spears, which is great, and that buys us a lot of time heading on into the late game, so that all of these Hawk Riders can hopefully secure out a victory. Mogr does get a big Chaos Spawn summon here. And the Harpies do come in to engage. We'll move in with our Hawk Riders to fight the Harpies in combat. We should be able to win that, but it looks like the fight sort of trades out evenly. We do get one of our troops routed off, but we will be able to finish off the rest of the Harpies. That's definitely a big plus. And with the Bret Shaman off the battlefield, that'll help us out quite a bit. So we'll continue to chase them off, move in the Sisters of Twilight. We accidentally let our Sylvan Knights get caught, though. And you know what? We'll leave them in combat, and then we'll get a nasty breath attack here onto the cavalry. They even pull back, seeing that about to go down, which lets our Sylvan Knights escape. So that's plus. We still have our flyers, and they're going to be focusing down the Sons of Goros. We'll be pulling back with our troops, trying to disengage here, waiting for the Chaos Spawn to disintegrate. And we're going to be relying a lot on Terror to give us the victory here. Still have a lot of spears. That's definitely a plus, but the cavalry's coming in, and we're going to want to line up a breath attack. Let's see how well this one does. Right on top of the hounds. And it does a pretty decent amount of damage. Nothing crazy, but actually these guys get on the verge of routing. We're going to bring in all of our troops to get a big charge on top of them and see if we can get them all to rout. Getting some terror routes over here. This is a Twilight. Working quite well. Sylvan Knights too. Routing them off, and this is big because the edge of the map is fairly close. And chase them off. And from there, it's just infantry left for the Beastmen, which is definitely a good position. The branch rate even comes back, and with all these troops running off the map, we have secured ourselves a pretty solid position. However, the Sylvan Knights will be dying. And let's see, there's still a lot of cavalry here. Sisters of Twilight could be in a rough position. We actually killed off the Sons of Goros a little bit later than we needed to. And now we're even seeing a charge onto my infantry. Is not great for them. Definitely not great. Looks like a lot of them will be getting routed off. We can position for a breath attack, however. But my opponent playing well, moving so that his troops aren't in as good of a place to get breath attacked. Instead, allowing his cavalry to move in and take some good fights. Branch rate, still alive, is good for us, but there's a lot of Beastmen infantry that we have to worry about. We've taken care of a lot of the cavalry. The Sylvan Knights are at low HP. Actually, only 2 models left. We can heal them up to max. But we don't have a lot of infantry for ourselves. We do have a lot of Hawk Riders that can cycle charge these troops. The these Centaurs here will take a lot of damage from my branch rate, and we can even charge into the back of them with our Lord. So let's see how this goes. We'll see if we can throw down a big heal too on top of our Hawk Riders, and it looks like we can, and that's going to be pretty big since the Hawk Riders at, yeah, the Hawk Riders. Oh, geez, actually charging in a little bit unexpected there, and we will be able to disengage. But yeah, the Hawk Riders are really important for cycle charging here, and they will likely be able to win out the game if I control them well enough. We're using the Sisters of Twilight too to finish off all these Centaurs, and if we can just get some solid charges in onto them, should be able to get some mass routes on my opponent. Dealing with the cavalry is huge here. And it looks like we will be able to kill them off. That's good. We'll disengage now, as we are cycle charging with all of the Hawk Riders. And we'll throw down a heal on all these beleaguered troops. As for these Korok's man rippers, we'll throw down a big old Bret attack on top of them. It looks like it does decent damage, but not amazing. Nevertheless, we can now charge in onto these Ungor spears, getting them to rout. Sisters of Twilight still doing quite good too, and they can charge into combat now, which means that we're feeling pretty good. Sisters of Twilight are not worried at all about taking damage. They have their crazy healing, and now that the cavalry is gone, they won't be able to stop the Sisters of Twilight from taking off once again. We also have more heals from the Branch Wraith, and it's going to be consistent cycle charging from these Hawk Riders to deal with the Korok's man rippers. Mogr the Shadow Gabe sadly won't really be able to do much here. His DPS isn't insanely high, and he'll mostly be getting knocked around by the Sisters of Twilight. And the Korok man rippers are now extremely low on leadership. Just a little bit more cycle charging onto them with the Hawks should do it. I think that's going to be GG. Loopy saying that he screwed up pretty bad. He definitely had a pretty nice lead, but the huge rout on his cavalry in the mid game looks to be what secured us the victory. Now it's just now it's just a brutal situation for the Beastmen. Our air cavalry, the Hawk Riders, actually really good in melee. They have a charge bonus of 20, and with them they will be able to win the game. Just with their constant cycle charging, there's not a whole lot that the Beastmen can do here. We'll turn on the single target shot now for the Sisters of Twilight so that they can snipe out Mogr. And that's going to be GG. Oh man, what a match. The big play there was the Hawk Riders routing off all of the cavalry, for sure. We lost the Sylvan Knights earlier than we needed to. Same with the Wild Riders. You can see they didn't really pay for themselves. The spears did buy a lot of time though, in conjunction with our cavalry, and that really let the Hawk Riders get a lot more damage. These guys are really good picking off troops, and we saw there, especially in the late game after we routed off the Centaurs, there wasn't a lot Loopy could have done. So getting into the final game of today, it's going to be Wood Elves against the Dark Elves of Loopy, the matchup that he is quite well practiced with. And to start off, it looks like he has a Marathi build with some Dark Riders. They will lose to our Wild Riders, and a Repeater Bolt Thrower. They'll be able to trade well into our cavalry. We will have to advance to take it out, but our Way Watcher should be able to get in some pretty nice initial damage at the very least. He clearly has some hidden units. Yeah, and it's probably going to be cavalry just based on these numbers here. The infantry account for most of his troop count. So yeah, it's cavalry or single entities that are going to be eating up the rest of his money here. Some bleak swords, we'll just send in some volleys of Way Watcher fire into them. He doesn't have a lot of troops, so we don't have to worry about conserving ammo too much. As for this chariot, we'll be able to pick them off with our Lord. The opportunity presents itself. The Way Watchers can just continue to dodge the best of their ability, picking away at whatever they can. Our Glade Lord will be sniping out the heroes. It looks like a Doom Bolt or something coming down. We'll see if we can get our Way Watchers to dodge the shots. And there we go, it basically does no damage. What we did there was we changed up their formation to spread them out as much as possible. and that actually ends up making their formation even more loose than it already is. Now these bleak swords have eaten up a lot of our ammunition, but like I said, we're more than happy to take trades like this, because generally Wood Elves won't run out of ammunition here. The Doomfire Warlocks have revealed themselves. We want to bring in our Lord to start getting in on top of them. We'll fire a volley here too, just to try and get some free damage, and we'll use our skirmishers to push them back. Meanwhile, our troops are taking some damage, just the Way Watchers taking a little bit of poke. Heal them up, try and take out that chariot, and nice, Loopy does manage to pull out before it takes too much damage. So we'll just continue our pullback, use our Way Watchers to fire away at more targets here. This time at the Dark Riders, putting in some pretty nice damage. And we're going to continue kiting back. We actually have a lot of space here, so there's not a whole lot to worry about. Our Lord will be targeting down Marathi, and we'll even see if we can net her down and get in some free Way Watcher shots into her. Wow, a crazy good volley actually. Really punishing her for that Soul Stealer, and another volley should be able to take her out. It's important to get the volleys in together, since that stagger animation can avoid a lot of the damage. So yeah, that's going to be one of the important goals. She does get taken very low though, and we can even take out the Bolt Thrower with our Wild Riders now. Branch Wraith will be moving back to a more defensive form position, and our cavalry can begin cycle charging the infantry that has engaged here. However, it looks like a big cavalry fight is on its way soon. Let's see here. We'll bring in our Lord, and we're going to charge in with all of our cavalry. See if we can take things out. The Soul Stealer has already gone down, but we'll throw down the Withering Overcast, and we'll see if that's able to win it. We'll heal up all of our troops and see if this big engagement is the one that we wanted to take. Looking like his troops are taking a lot of damage. And there we go. We managed to rout off a lot of his cavalry before taking too much heat. So it looks like that huge debuff strategy working out for us. We didn't manage to heal up all of our cavalry like we wanted to, but nevertheless, it was a pretty nice trade. The Bolt Thrower now is going down, and we have spears coming in to support. The Way Watchers will retreat to get into a better position, with fire at will turned on so that they continue firing. And we'll see how this goes. The cavalry fight did go very well in our favor, but suddenly things have started turning into the favor of Loopy. His infantry is getting in on the fight, but the fact that the Way Watchers are still alive is definitely a good sign. We'll throw down a net here, and another Soul Stealer coming down. They've actually been stacking up very hard onto our cavalry forces, so we'll have to try to heal that up. Oh, actually not a Soul Stealer. The Cainite Assassin uses his ability. He has an ability that can, that's an AoE attack around him, and that actually causes a lot of damage to our cavalry. Nevertheless, balance of power still in our favor, and the Cold One Chariots are on their way out. We still have a bunch of spears too at the ready, and our Lord is taking out the Cainite Assassin. So despite some pretty heavy misplays there, losing a lot of cavalry, we still managed to pull through and come out ahead on a lot of these trades. Way Watchers can now make it out to safety. Same with our Way Watchers, Wild Riders I mean. And we should be able to chase off these Dark Riders. There are still a unit of Slaaneish's Harvesters here, however. We'll want to take them out. We're using our Way Watchers to do so, sending in a couple volleys. And hopefully that goes okay. Marathi too has actually healed up significantly. And our Lord is taking a lot of damage from the Doomfire Warlocks. We will still have to be careful here. But we've secured ourselves a pretty decent cavalry advantage. I'm feeling okay, not especially confident, especially with these Dark Riders coming in and our cavalry taking so much damage. Marathi being healthy too is definitely not great, but I guess we can just start cycle charging these bleak swords and just winning out the infantry fight from there. Not to mention we still have skirmishers, and they can probably pick off the rest of these Dark Riders. Marathi does land in there, getting in some pretty nice damage. But it's all about that infantry fight now, I think. And to win that out, it's just going to be cycle charging as much as we possibly can. Taking out the bleak swords, occupying them with our spears, and then from there, he really just has Marathi. She'll be kited out by our lord. That should work out quite fine. We'll even throw down a net on top of her to make sure that she can't come in to support her troops. That should work out well. Our lord will be focus firing her. Branch Wraith just engaging in melee, taking out infantry wherever it can. This unit of Helebroni, Dread Spears, do poison, and they're going to be the hardest target for us to finish off. But with the Eternal Guard support, I'm not as worried. Now Marathi is coming in. Looks like she will be diving in on top of my cavalry. We'll send our Branch Wraith to fight against her while our cavalry pulls to safety. Our spears will be moving into support. We'll see if we can take her out with our 2 heroes. Should be a not terrible fight. A Soul Stealer could come down. So we're keeping fairly safe with our cavalry, and with our lord we'll be trying to run to safety. Actually, Helebron trying to run away too, and she does manage to escape. We do trade into her fairly effectively though, but she gets a nice charge onto my lord, and there's the second Soul Stealer. Our lord will be able to pull away before dying, however, and we'll be mitigating the damage of this Soul Stealer as best as we can. Our cavalry can now move in to cycle charge the Helebroni, and we'll be using our spears to occupy them while poisoning everything we can. Our lord will be focus firing Marathi. We'll even surround her with the Wild Riders, and that looks to be a victory here for us. She doesn't have a lot of armor. She is a dark elf female, and they generally have pretty low armor values, so the Wild Riders will hit her for a lot of damage. We'll even bring in the Branch Wraith. We're poisoning her, and she is going down fast. We rout off the Helebroni, and there we go. It looks like we just barely managed to pull out a win against Loopy. The nice engagements at the beginning of the game, some bad ones in the mid game, but overall coming out on top. There we go. Lots of damage on our skirmishers. He didn't have any counter skirmish against them. His bolt thrower didn't really pay for itself. His cavalry, however, did do very well. The double Doomfire Warlocks, very scary. And the chariot too, running over my Way Watchers. Nevertheless, we still used up most of our ammunition. These are very impressive damage values for the Way Watchers. The single volley on Marathi, taking out half her HP, was huge. And if we were able to kill her with the second volley, that definitely would have won us the game outright. So there we go. Eternal Guard pulling out in the late game. And our cavalry, micro, slowly getting better. So there we go. That's going to be it for today. And we'll be closing out the stream now.